Hello, folks of the world and the Come Up universe. It's me, Nick, and this is the Come Up. Please welcome to the Come Up, my honor, two-time Helen Hayes Award-winning playwright, Karen Zacarias. Yes, here she is.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so happy to be here with you, Nick. I feel like we're like longtime friends, but we always are in different places.
We met during the Guthrie experience.
Right.
I think we met for a brief moment. And then I was doing Ella, and I was like, "Why not?" So I just messaged you, and you were so warm and nice, and then you started posting on Facebook about it, and I was like, "We friends, y'all." Like I said it, we friends.
I was so proud of that production. It was so beautiful. I got, it's just both from like the commitment of your art form to it, to the diversity of it. It was just, I was so proud. And, the Rose Theater has always been a theater I've wanted to work with. And I'm so glad that you helped introduce me to Omaha. So thank you so much.
Yes. And that's something you and I have in common, is this passion for telling stories for young audiences. Why is that something that you kind of hone in on as a writer?
I moved to this country when I was 10 years old from Mexico, and that experience of being powerless, of having a lot of feelings, of being an observer of the world, of trying to fit in, is something that's colored my work and my point of view for the rest of my life. So I remember how it feels to be 10. Childhoods are not easy. Mm-hmm. I don't know why people don't talk about that. It's hard not to have agency. It's hard to have feelings and opinions. And I always thought the books that best reflected that is the complicated nature of being a child, and that you navigate the world in such a way that it'll color everything you do. And so I always thought TYA should be giving kids the tools to better navigate the world and question and find their place and find their voice. As well as being entertaining. But that's a new kind of, this idea of like, hey, boys and girls theater has really ebbed away, hopefully here in the United States, and is really taking place to kind of deal with the complicated world of being a kid. Because even in quarantine, this must be so wild for a 9-year-old to deal with the idea that they have to wear a mask and they can't see their friends. Like, it's hard for us as adults. Anyway, I've always believed in the voice of young people, and I love TYA. It's made me a better writer. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better artist, because looking at the world from another perspective, is another form of diversity, is looking at the world from the point of view of a young person. A lot of middle-aged people with opinions on stage, but not a lot of kids.
That's so fair.
There is an awareness and an activism and a hope and also a determination that a lot of kids, and I see it in my own children, of like, okay, you guys have been doing this, you guys are kind of messing this up. It's time for us to really talk about equity and talk about, changing things, because this whole phenomena is everything that's 2020 is on the adults, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, it's interesting. I've been talking to my mom a lot, and she was like, she was like, you really want change? And I was like, I do really want change, and we need change. I think that we're hurting, and we saw that hurt with COVID. It then got exacerbated with Ahmaud Arbery, and then the Amy Cooper video, and then George Floyd, and those three things that happened. Marcelo Lorca, our friend in Minneapolis, said so gorgeously in an article. Those three things kind of happened in this perfect succession to give us this moment of like, whoa, like we have some waking up to do.
And this is where I think the pandemic is a strange and awful gift, because we're not distracted with a million things. We have to sit with the evidence of our inhumanity on a daily basis, of other people's, what we've been allowing to go on. It's a time of reckoning for a lot of us, and for this whole country. And for me, who just became an American citizen not too long ago, it's just a really interesting spectrum. I mean, I just wrote a play for OSF that is about systemic racism, etc. And it's a story that was a trial of the century in 1905. Nobody knows about it. Mm-hmm. It's hidden history. There's so much history and so much stories that need to be covered for us to reckon with what this country has been and what it can become for everybody.
Yeah, I love the way that you write, because I feel like it takes these stories and puts them in a very, this sounds so cliche, but like this human place, right? And that's what I love about Ella, because I felt like it was easy for us to approach this as a story and not like as a kid's play, because it was this well written piece of theater. And I also got to see Native Gardens at his debut at the Guthrie, and it was just this fun. So it was so fun, but I was like, wow, what a way to engage in this conversation about space and what is your space and what is a border. When you begin to write a piece, where do you kind of start?
It's a little different. I mean, Native Gardens is a comedy, right? And it deals with, what's the idea of white privilege? What is the idea of a border? What is taste and culture? And how can you have a comedy about that? Because that's the hard part. So the first thing that you have to learn to love all your characters with all their faults and all, because otherwise you won't be able to sit with them for very long. And so that was the first thing. And the other thing is what are the topics that I wanted to bring up? It's very interesting. Native Gardens, I think it's the second Latino written play at the Guthrie. I think Naomi Zuka was the first one. So it's an audience that has not had an opportunity to listen to a lot of Latino writers per se. So knowing that you have the megaphone for the first time, and I give great kudos to Joseph Hodge for giving me this space, right? This part of his first season. And when he picked this new play by a Mexican writer who's never been done in New York, he's sending a message out to the world. It's like, okay, this is a story that merits being on the American stage. This is part of the narrative of being an American. For many theaters that did it later, it was the first time they'd ever had a Latino actor on stage or a Latino designer on stage, like in their 40, 50-year history. So, and the amount of actors that were able to get their equity card and their insurance and all these things about real life, it's one of the things that makes me most proud. It's not just the story, which affects people and people discuss and talk about it and fight about it afterwards, but the actual true to living, who gets hired and whose life gets better because they were involved in a project. I had this group of Karens, literally women named Karen, who had banded together because they wanted to change the name or whatever. And I was like, ladies, this is not a movement that I'm interested in at all. Ladies complaining that their name is being used. I was like, this is I have no issue with the name Karen being used for what it is, because I know what it, you know what I mean? It's so funny to me how certain groups I am silly, this is the victimization and not, etc. So I was like, wow, what a weird thing to get, there's all this real injustice going on in the world. And the group of Karens, I was like, and it's funny because most of the Karens I know are Latina or Asian or Black, actually. I don't know that many, but we're all like, yeah, she's acting like a Karen. I mean, there's huge existential questions that are facing. We're lying to ourselves if we're not facing it, in a sense. But you can't do that all the time. You do have to go watch bad TV
and I watch plenty of it.
Would you want to be on a reality show?
I've thought about this a lot. So I'm not sure that I want to be on a reality show after I'm already relevant. So I don't want the reality show to be the reason. I want to get a reality show because they're interested in me. You know what I mean? I want it to be like, Nick, your life is so great. We should do a reality show. And I'm like, really? I don't know. And then
Real world, right? That's kind of where reality TV started. And I remember when I turned 30, I was like, I had been sick or something. I'd been watching all the Real World, and I turned 30 and I cried and cried. And my husband was like, what is going on? He goes, I will never be on the Real World. I'm too old. Because that experiment of putting young people on that just seems so wild. Now it's like, woo, I personally would not want to be on a reality show, and I understand why you would. But I did want to when I was younger, and turning 30, the big thing, I was like, I am just too old. Nobody's going to care about anything I did. And so forget it, yes.